Like Ali, I was the man in Manila, man or gorilla. I'm a nicer striker than Anderson Silva. This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West, answering questions today for the Power Project on bodybuilding.com. On bodybuilding.com, they refer to me as they have a column for me called Ask the Strong Dude. And here on the Power Project, if this is your first time on the Power Project, congratulations for finding a wealth of outstanding, useless information that is for free, just like my gym is now for free. There's a lot of reasons for it. I'll go into it some other time. But we have questions to get to here today at the Power Project, so let's get rolling. The question is about overhead pressing. How do I increase my overhead press? And I decided that I would make this a question about overhead pressing, and I'd also answer some questions about bench pressing as well, because I do believe the two go hand in hand. The actual assistance exercises for the two can go hand in hand as well. So let's talk about some ways to increase the overhead press. Now, if you've been working with a barbell a lot, I would say try to use some dumbbells for a little while. Also, keep in mind that whenever you're talking about trying to build up a muscle, when you're trying to increase the strength of a movement, we need to increase the size and the strength of all the surrounding muscles, upstream, downstream. So if we're going to increase the strength of our overhead press, do you think some side laterals would help? Do you think some rear delt work would help? All of that is going to help make for a more jacked shoulder and a more stable shoulder. You want your shoulders so big and so jacked that they have their own stable, like a horse. So here's some suggestions on increasing the overhead press. Try for a few weeks or every other week. Let me fix my hat here. Try for a few weeks or perhaps every other week to throw in some bench pressing. Bench pressing is going to help build up all the surrounding muscles. Bench pressing has been utilized by many great overhead pressers. Derek Poundstone comes to mind right away, and some other really well-known strongmen who can press a lot of weight also work on their bench press. Now, keep in mind, these are, Derek Poundstone, somebody like Big Mike Jenkins. If you don't know who Mike Jenkins is, look him up. He's enormous. Mike told me that he does work on his bench press, but it's more of an assistance move. Because you got to keep in mind, these guys, their bread and butter, they're kind of making their living off of their overhead presses and not their bench presses. So the priority goes towards the overhead press. However, they still utilize the bench press in a safe manner to help build up their overhead pressing. So if you feel like your overhead press is really stuck, first suggestion would be try incorporating some bench presses every other week. And that way you're not doing your overhead presses quite as often. Also, I would like to see you start to move into some different types of overhead pressing. Try doing some dumbbells. Try some of the old school Arnold presses. Remember these guys where you had them like this and you turn them out? You could try some old school methods. Just because things are old doesn't mean they're not good. Remember people used to run the rack? Have you young guys out there ever heard of running the rack? Well, you'd grab like the 50s and you'd bust out a set of 8 to 10 reps. Then you'd grab the 40s and bust out a set of 8 to 10 reps. Then you grab the 30s and grab, and so on. Were guys in the 70s and 80s not jacked? Or even guys from, even guys from the 60s were jacked, using those types of methods. So those things are still relevant today. Keep in mind, a bigger muscle will oftentimes be a stronger muscle. Not all the time, but a bigger muscle, more often than not, will be a stronger muscle due to leverages. Speaking of leverages, if you're working your biceps and you're working your triceps, and your forearms, that's going to create better leverages out of the press. Because now you got your bicep and your forearm touching each other for when you go to shoot that weight up overhead. So those are some things to keep in mind when you're trying to increase your overhead press. Now, some bench pressers, some great bench pressers over the years, have shied away from shoulder work, from work in the front of the delt, due to the fact they got so much work out of the bench press. But I would say, and making this mistake myself, I would say that that's not a great route to go. I would say you'd have better longevity and you're going to be stronger by working in some overhead. So if you're trying to increase your bench press, guess what's a good recommendation for that? Overhead pressing. If you're trying to increase your overhead press, throw in some bench pressing. Now, if you're worried about bench pressing injuring you, because let's face it, the bottom of the bench press is a very unnatural position to be in. I don't care what anybody says about biomechanics, what anybody says about the way the body is supposed to move. The human body's not really designed to lay down on a bench, have their arm travel past the midline of their body with extreme loads. Don't make it dirty. Don't go there. I did say extreme loads with extreme weight. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on the front of that shoulder. Our bodies just aren't really designed to do that. We're designed to like push stuff. We're designed to throw stuff. We're designed to, throw a punch. But a punch or a throw is only with one arm back, and usually there's twisting involved with the rest of your body, and therefore it's a safer, a pitcher throwing a ball. Those things, even though they can be very dangerous, they're designed in such a way that incorporating your whole body. In the bench press, your arms really get pinned back there. So those of you that are worried about incorporating some sort of shoulder impingement or getting some sort of shoulder pain or even possibly a pec tear from the bench press, there are some options out there. And option A would be to utilize some floor presses. Option B would be to invest in a slingshot. That's my product. That's my invention from howmuchyoubench.net. Now the slingshot is going to propel you out of the bottom, and it's going to keep your shoulder safe. So you're going to be able to handle more weight for more reps and more sets in your training. And it's fairly inexpensive. It's only like $50. I'm not going to go on a rant or a thing about trying to make this an advertisement for the slingshot, but I'm just trying to recommend what I think will be best for you to increase some of your lifts. We also need to work on some triceps. So some close grip bench pressing might be a little bit better option than just a regular bench press. Close grip floor presses, dumbbell floor presses, and even dumbbell overhead presses. Remember I was talking about the Arnold presses, those are really good, but dumbbell overhead presses are a real bitch too. Those are really tough, and they tend to work your stabilizers a lot better than some other types of exercises. A couple other things you can do to increase your overhead pressing and or increase your bench press. Make sure you're working your rotator cuff. Make sure you're keeping your shoulders healthy. You could do that before and or after a training session. Also make sure that you're trying to keep everything opened up a little bit. Those of you that want to have longevity in strength sports, make sure that you're getting full range of motion, and make sure that you are really trying to stretch out and open up those pecs so you don't always end up all rolled forward. For those of you that are bench pressing all the time or doing overhead work all the time, you're going to end up in the douchebag syndrome posture where you're kind of walking around like this, "What's up, bro?" all the time. So you make sure you try to open everything up all the time, and you can do that by doing some incline. You just take some dumbbells on an incline and do some flies. Try to really stretch some of that out, stretch some of the pecs out, and even just take the weights and just hold them back there with your arms pinned back behind you. Very light weights for 20, 30 seconds at a time. Try to open up all those tissues so that you're not going to get injured. Because if you're injured, you get reduced to zero. Multiply your muscle, multiply your hustle. Strength is never a weakness, and that is it from supertraining.tv and bodybuilding.com.